Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk to you guys about what is going on in Denver, Colorado in relation to their migrant crisis. Now, we talked about Denver, the city, a little bit on this channel before. We talked about the cuts that they're making to their city budget in order to compensate these migrants.
This is a plan for shared sacrifice. This is what good people do in hard situations, is you try to manage a way to serve all of your values. Our values are we want to continue to be a city that does not have women and children out on the street in tents in 20-degree weather. And we also want to be a city that provides all of our constituents with the services they deserve and the services that they expect. We want to do both of those. We have to find a way to deliver shared sacrifice to try to manage those values in the road ahead. And so in terms of our first step on city cuts, we are announcing today we will make some changes both to our services at DMV and to our services on Parks and Rec.
However, this story, this headline, and the report that followed it was so ridiculous and so absurd, it needs its own dedicated video, because the city of Denver is trying to get these migrants into shelters, things that, again, normal citizens have trouble finding if they find themselves homeless, which, by the way, are disproportionately returning veterans from war, and the migrants are refusing it until their list of demands from the city of Denver is met. Yes, guests in this country, not even really guests, people committing asylum fraud, illegal immigrants, are submitting demands to the city of Denver for even more benefits, helping them with their documents in terms of immigration, because as we all know, you get the God tier citizen status when you come to this country illegally and fraudulently claim asylum. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Here tonight, a group of migrants staying at an encampment sending a list of demands to the desk of the mayor of Denver.
And if the demands are met, they say that they'll leave their encampment and move to a city-funded shelter.
Yeah, you heard that right. That intro does not misstate what's going on in the city of Denver. What you have right here are a bunch of migrants. Again, we talked about this on this channel before. These are people who are in the asylum system despite the fact that they're economic migrants, meaning they're committing immigration fraud, meaning that they are in fact illegal immigrants, saying that they will not move to the city shelter unless they meet their list of demands, and included in those demands, unbelievably, is shelter. They don't want to leave the streets to go to the shelter unless they meet the demands of these migrants in the city of Denver, one of which is to give them shelter. This is what's actually going on in the city of Denver. This is what's happening for people who are non-citizens breaking our law, who have flooded the border, as Joe Biden asked.
In fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
And we're just supposed to accept this. We're just supposed to say, you know what? Makes perfect sense. Colorado used to be part of Mexico anyway, even though a lot of these people aren't Mexicans. A lot of them are Venezuelans and from other countries. We'll give them whatever they want as long as they, follow our demands, which is for us to provide them with more free stuff. And their demands are for them to get even more free stuff.
Eric and Jeremy, it's kind of a tug of war between both sides. On one side, you've got the migrants who say the city reneged on a deal they made with them. On the other side, you've got the city lobbying these migrants to get off the streets and into shelters, telling us tonight these benefits are available to them as long as they're staying in those city-funded shelters.
So like I said, everything about this story, and I mean every little thing, is absurd and ridiculous on its face. This was just described to us as a tug of war, but you just heard that there is no real tugging, there is no real back and forth going on between the city and the migrants, except for the fact that the migrants want even more benefits. So you have Denver, an American city, supposed to be protecting and providing for, to a certain extent, the citizens of Denver. And they're saying, we have all the benefits that we promised you. All you have to do is move off the streets, get out of the underpass, get away from the train tracks, move into the shelters that are funded by the city, and you will receive your benefits. And on the other hand, you have the migrants saying, no, we want more. We want all of that stuff and more on top of that. And we will refuse to move. We will refuse to let your city get cleaned up unless you meet our demands, all of which you seem to actually be meeting on its surface, in the shelters, but you know what? We want the stuff before we move into the shelters. So suck on that.
The camp as a collective came up with a list of demands.
Look, I'm just gonna say this right off the top. I absolutely despise this woman. First and foremost, she's wearing that like shirt thing that a lot of like Mexicans in stereotypical movies will wear, the cholo or chola shirt, because she's the woman. And she's trying to overconnect with these Latino migrants. Obviously an American, she is a migrant activist, and she's talking about the migrants coming together in a collective in order to put forward a series of demands. So not only are these people occupying under the bridge like leftist protesters, but they're also starting to use, through their ambassadors, the language of said leftist protesters. This is why I am in favor of these migrants being sent back. And honestly, this woman can pick whatever country of origin of the migrants that she has decided to become an ambassador on, and we could pack her up and send her over there too. Something about these people, these Americans, these activists, is even worse than the illegal migrants, because they're the ones gassing them up into thinking that they're entitled to more. And this has played out across this country, very notably that instance out of New York City where you had the migrant activists demand that the migrants not only not be moved from the Watson Hotel, where they were staying at premium rates, by the way, and they were destroying the hotel, but be granted free apartments on Billionaires Row, some of the most expensive real estate in the entire country. Do you think I'm kidding about this? Let me play the clip.
He could have easily, along with Governor Hochul, opened up all the vacant luxury apartments. We are on 57th Street right now. This is Billionaires Row. Half of the super towers on this street are empty.
Now, I've said over and over again, there is no need for anybody out there in the audience to hate the migrants, despise the migrants, or anything like that. Because in reality, what is happening in this country is that they're taking advantage of and responding to incentives that were laid out by the federal government and by these sanctuary cities. But these kind of attitudes from the activists that purport to represent the migrants do them no favors. They create hatred. They create the idea that we should despise these people. And honestly, the system caters to them so much, I understand why people have that negative sentiment. That being said, I will reiterate, there's no reason to hate these migrants individually because, again, they're just taking advantage of a corrupt system. They're taking advantage of a failed system. We decided under the Biden administration to get rid of Remain in Mexico, to tell these people to surge to the border, and that we would process them as long as they said the magic words, i.e. they're seeking asylum, and this is the logical result of that policy.
That came after a petition by city officials for migrants to move from this encampment near train tracks under a bridge to indoor shelters funded by the city.
Is that a Palestinian flag? Is that right there a Palestinian flag? Am I crazy? Or are we now importing people who are like, yay, Palestine, down with America, death to America? No, send them back. Send them to Palestine. Send them to Gazastan. That's where they want to go since they're hanging that flag.
This morning, they sent buses to take people over without presenting that document and without having any kind of signature for accountability.
That's what migrant advocate V. Reeves says the city responded with instead of meeting the migrants' demands.
Listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I've never done quantum physics. But if you name your child V as a name, this is how they're going to turn out. A white American spoiled brat child with the first name of V is going to be out there telling the migrants that they need to camp out under a bridge instead of going to the shelters and drawing up a list of demands on behalf of said migrants, because that's how you're going to end up raising somebody when you name your white girl child V. This is obviously a white guilted woman. This is obviously somebody who thinks that America owes these illegal migrants something more than they're getting, more than is granted to them in all these different various sanctuary cities. And honestly, she's leading them astray, because look at the comments under this video or any other story that is covering this, and you will see the American population has had enough of this nonsense. Again, citizens don't get these benefits. Homeless people don't get offered shelters and then ask for a list of demands in order for them to get out of areas that they're completely messing up. But these illegal immigrants, these people who are defrauding the asylum system, they're granted this. they have these advocates right here, and they're just emboldened by them.
We've been offering time and shelter, basically just trying to get families to leave that camp and come inside.
John Ewing with Denver Human Services says shelter comes with its perks, namely getting out of these conditions outdoors.
Which comes with, 3 square meals a day. You can cook your own if you'd like to.
That is one of the main demands by these migrants who have had their grievances in the past about the food provided by the city.
Now listen, there are going to be some legitimate grievances that they have in relation to food, but I feel like it's time for me to pause and point out that the food provided by the city is provided by the city. It is free food. It is being paid for by the taxpayers. As we talked about in the open, the mayor of Denver is cutting benefits, cutting programs to average everyday citizens, making their lives more difficult in order to provide them stuff for free. And by the way, as this guy said, you'll get the 3 square meals if you don't want to cook, but if you want to cook your own food, you are also able to do that, so that way you can be satisfied with the food that you're getting. But these migrants are saying that that's in their list of demands, things that they want to do, and they're refusing to leave this underpass where, by the way, they are being brought food for free by the Denver taxpayers because the food is no good that they're being brought. Again, this is one of the most absurd things humanly possible. Essentially, Denver is meeting all of their demands if they move to the shelters, but they say they're not going to move to the shelters unless you meet all of their demands. And again, I will emphasize this one more time. One of their demands is that they be moved to a shelter. So there should be no dispute here, yet there is.
There have been so many complaints about the food being spoiled or not being enough and malnutrition amongst children.
Now look, obviously spoiled food is not a good thing. It's just a waste of money. You're feeding them stuff that they're not even going to eat because it's spoiled. And we talked about on this channel how the vendors that get the contracts to provide these migrants food are sometimes not even food companies in the first place. So it's obviously pay to play in terms of politics. It's what you can expect whenever you have these giant welfare programs. So I understand that the food might not be up to par, but the thing is, this is free food that you're being provided by the United States of America, by the city of Denver, so your complaints kind of fall on deaf ears, in my opinion.
Migrants who do stay in shelters are often put on a path toward a work permit. Reeves says these folks haven't received the same benefits.
They're not receiving any kind of official housing or immigration document support, which is incredibly necessary for them to be able to navigate the bureaucracy around these systems.
The city says its own offer comes with these benefits.
Now look, I will say this to everybody out there in the audience. I know people who have come to this country legally. I know people who have married people that are abroad, and they've had to deal with the whole process on their own, paying for it out of pocket in order to navigate our immigration bureaucracy. It is real, it is legitimate, it is something that we should probably fix and streamline for legal immigrants. That being said, these people are here illegally. Part of the bureaucracy that they have to deal with is that the overwhelming majority of them are claiming asylum fraud. So the idea that not only do we have to feed, shelter, let these people cook their own food if they want it, shop for groceries for them, and all of that, but then on top of that, meet their list of 13 demands that they as a collective drew up, but then on top of that, provide them support and services to navigate the immigration system so they don't have to pay the cost when they came here fraudulently. And this is not something that we expect of legal immigrants, or not something that legal immigrants can expect, let alone American citizens. Need I say that again? Is absurd in every possible way. And again, this lady who's trying to wear the Cholo uniform, who's trying to embrace the cultural diversity, I can't stand her, especially considering that I'm seeing Palestinian flags all over the place. Now, there's two options for why these Palestinian flags are up there. First and foremost, a lot of people from the Middle East, Muslim backgrounds, and all of that. And need I remind you that asylum is supposed to be people going to the next safe country, not going to the first country of their choice. So that means they got on a plane, they flew somewhere, and then they flooded the border, and now they're entitled to benefits, which is insane because that's obviously an instance of asylum fraud. Option dos is that these people are Latino immigrants or African immigrants, as we've seen, not Muslim at all, but activists like this lady decided that they needed to decorate this whole camp with Palestinian flags because, oh my God, we got to think about what's going on in Gazastan because that's so important. And golly gee, America, So bad, so racist.
What do you qualify for? What do you not qualify for? What might be something that is a feasible path for you to success that is not staying on the streets of Denver? We try to compromise. We try to figure something out. You know, at the end of the day, what we do not want is families on the streets of Denver.
Just listen to the position of these two negotiating parties and you will understand why the migrants are getting absolutely everything that they want all of the time. This guy's just saying, hey, we'll give you everything you ask, come to the shelters, and the migrants are demanding more stuff because they think that they're God-tier citizens because you have activists and politicians that have essentially treated them like that. I'm not about this. If you're out there in the camp and you've been offered a free ride to a shelter and you refuse it, then you know what? Go back to your own country. The idea that you get to live under a bridge in the city of Denver or any of these major metropolitan areas or anywhere in this country and then make demands of a government that's not supposed to represent you is absurd. I will also add, these activists, they can go right along with you. They can go to your origin country so that they could put together a list of demands from the citizens over there, give them to that government that's likely going to be an authoritarian government, and we'll see how that works out for them. I'm absolutely sick of this nonsense, and I know many of you out there in the audience are sick of it as well. But as usual, I'm going to leave the floor open to you, so let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me with the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute insanity, absolute madness coming out of the city of Denver. Till next time.